2 of our New Deal, be able to summarize the New Deal in general, and then list some of the programs that we talk about here in the New Deal. The first 100 days of FDR basically wants to write a bunch of laws that gives money to the poor or creates programs to employ people. Basically, Keynesian economics, we've got to increase demand. The way that we do that's got to get money to the people. Well, unfortunately, the president can't just make laws. We have a separation of powers in our limited government, so the legislative branch has to do it. So FDR says, hey, I need the legislative branch to make some laws that will help me create programs to get money in the hands of Americans to increase demand, blah, blah, blah. And it's not a problem because most of Congress are Democrats. They're in the same party as FDR, so they work together and start pumping out tons of new programs, basically doing whatever they want, anything they want. The idea of limited government pretty much goes out the window. Happens sometimes, and the idea is like, hey, let's pass a bunch of new laws to help people out. This is his first 100 days. They're not literally just giving money to the poor, but they're basically doing something close to it. So this is really a huge change in American history. We are talking about the federal government beginning to play a huge role in the lives of people, fixing your lives. This is completely new. This wasn't what we saw from the government before. Basically, the government was protecting our rights, doing the military, basic infrastructure. We never had this idea that the government was here to fix your life. It was usually fix your own life, but now it's changing. The federal government is taking an involved role in the economy and being very involved in the lives of individuals. They're getting involved in the banking system. They're going to get involved in people being unemployed, people being poor, people struggling. They're going to get involved in farming and agriculture. They're going to get involved in the production of goods. Basically, the government is getting involved in everything for the first time. Really, the government was very much just protecting rights, running the courts, police, military. They weren't involved in the manufacturing of goods, the production of corn, whether you were employed or not, or how the banking system worked. That wasn't their job. Now it is, and it is still today. And their defense of this is if you look at the Constitution, you read the preamble, it says, we the people want the government to promote the general welfare. Basically, we want the government to make our lives better. And the argument of FDR and the Democrats in Congress during the New Deal was, look, we're trying to make your lives better. We're trying to make a better banking system, so we're going to make laws about banking. We're trying to make production for farmers and production of goods better, so we are going to get involved in making laws about how goods are made and how farms work and how unemployment works, and that would be their defense of doing this. So let's look at the banks. One of the first things that he'll do during his 100 days is close the banks. And you're probably thinking, well, what? So if you want to go to the bank, it's closed. Sorry. Well, I need the money. Sorry, the bank's closed. There's a reason. We'll explain why did he do this. So FDR is going to close the banks. And the problem is there were all these bank runs, as I mentioned in the video before, 3,700 banks in the U.S. closed because there were bank runs. And we're talking about good banks that happen. So there's no money in the vault. People show up, hey, I need that money that I put in there. Say, oh, I'm sorry. Too many people rush into the bank. They all demand their money. And then eventually the bank has no money. They can't loan money out, so the bank closes. And good banks, good people are hurt by this because of the fractional banking system. If they have $1 million in deposits, as we talked about, they loan out $900,000. They loan most of the money out. They don't watch. It's a Wonderful Life. The banks don't keep all the money in there. They loan it out. They loan it out so people can buy houses, so businesses can start. They don't have all the money there. But if people come in and demand all the money, they can't pay it all out, and they go under. So good banks fail, and everyone is freaking out. Everybody's fearful. Everybody's worried. So they can't pay off these people, and the banks close. And then people are like, hey, that might happen to my bank now. And so you rush to your bank, and there's a line outside the door, people trying to get their money before the bank goes out of business because there's a bank run. And so what FDR does is just like, look, there's too many people running into these banks, and there's too many healthy banks going out of business. We're just going to close all the banks down. We're closing them all down. You can't get your money. We're shutting them down, because we can't have this happen anymore. And you're probably thinking, well, this isn't fair. Like, how can you keep me from my money? Well, the answer is because they're going to. During a crisis, the government does whatever it wants. We're living through one right now. We lived through one about 10 years ago. And the Great Depression is a perfect example of, in a crisis, your rights don't mean anything. The Constitution doesn't mean anything. Oh, you're supposed to have these protections. Too bad. They're going to shut down the banks regardless of whether they have the authority to do it. They shut down literally every single bank, and they say they're closed. You can't get your money. And they do that because they're afraid that if they leave the banks open, there's going to be more bank runs and more healthy banks. And as we talked about before, as the banks go, then they can't loan out money. It sucks even more money out of the economy and makes things even worse, right? If people continue to make these runs on banks, good banks, bad banks, it doesn't matter. They are all susceptible to this. The banks will go down. If everyone goes to your bank right now, today, if everyone at your bank, whatever it is in your local town, let's just say that your bank is Chase Bank. If everybody goes immediately and demands their money from Chase Bank, they don't have it. They loan it out and they can't pay it, and they will collapse and go out of business. And when they go out of business, they can't loan money, and investors can't get money, can't start jobs, workers go under with them. You can't borrow money, people buy less, and it pretty much destroys the economy. So you have to protect the banks. And so whether you like it or not, I mean, you can argue, hey, he had to do what he had to do. And then some people say, I don't care. You can't just do things. You can't just make it up. So they close the banks for 8 days, because it goes back to the idea we're fighting fear. We're fighting fear. People are fearful that the bank's going to go under, so they run into the bank to get their money. It's irrational. We have to stop people from doing it, just like the people went on a toilet paper run recently during the coronavirus epidemic. There was no reason that everyone needed to run in and get the toilet paper, but it happens. Just like people fearful, I better go get my money from the bank before it closes, and they rush in and they collapse the bank, just like we've rushed in and collapsed the toilet paper industry. There's no toilet paper. So what happens is the government closes the banks down, and they tell the people, look, we're going to inspect every single bank, and we're only going to open up the good, healthy banks. We're only going to open up the healthy banks, okay? So everybody calm down. 8 days pass, they look at it and say, all right, we're going to open the banks. They're good to go. Come get your money. And people think, oh, well, look, my bank must be fine. They said they're only opening the healthy banks. The government looked at it for 8 days. They said they're fine. So I guess I don't need to rush in and get my money. And everybody looks like, yeah, I guess we don't need to rush in and get our money. Cool. Just like if you said, hey, we don't all need toilet paper. We don't all need toilet paper. Look, it's okay. We don't need it. We're fine. I got enough at home. You're like, oh, okay. And then you stop buying it, and then everything returns to normal, and people just get toilet paper when they need it. People go to the bank when they need it. Here's the problem, though. So it's just fighting fear. They lied. They didn't really inspect the banks. They just shut the banks down for 8 days. They opened them all back up. Didn't really even do anything. And again, you can say, hey, they got to do what they got to do. And this one worked out in the end. Other people say, look, no, we don't want a government that's going to abuse our rights, do whatever it wants, and lies to us. So there's different sides to this. And we can both keep both thoughts in our mind at the same time. That's not crazy out of control. FDR's fireside chats, he would give radio addresses every single week, and the main idea was just to calm people down, fighting the fear, right? So we don't have a toilet paper run or a bank run. Just everybody calm down, everything's going to be all right. If the government can print money, they can loan out more money, and the economy grows. Problem was, during this time, the only way the government could print money is with gold. We were tied to a gold standard. Every dollar represented an actual bar of gold that the government had. So they could only print as much money as the gold that they had. And they didn't have very much gold during the Great Depression, so they can't have very much money. So what will happen is FDR says, dude, we need the money. We need to print money so we can loan the money out so that people can spend the money and create demand. It's a part of Keynesian economics. And so what he decides is, hey, this idea, this gold standard that we can only print money based on the gold that we have, too bad it's out the window, forget about it. It's a huge change. All of a sudden, we're making up the money rules, and they can just start printing money. And they do it, and they print money, and that should have helped fix the economy. Didn't necessarily. Here's another problem. So again, going back to that idea that the gold is tied to dollars. So basically, before FDR, you could take your money in and say, hey, here's my money, give me a bar of gold. And they would exchange your dollar bills for gold. That was a part of the gold standard. That was how it worked. You could exchange your money for gold. FDR comes in and says, nope, and says, we're not going to do that anymore. They completely rewrite the rules. They change the rules and say, we are no longer going to let you exchange your money for the gold, even though that was always the rules. That is the contract. That's basically what the dollar says. It's a Federal Reserve note. It's a guarantee for the gold. So we're not going to honor it anymore. Then he goes even a step further. People wrote contracts that say, hey, when you pay me back, you may have to pay me back in gold. I can ask or demand, because here's the thing. The government's printing a bunch of money, which is devaluing the money and shooting up the price of goods, but actually it's devaluing the money. And people anticipate this and realize that the government prints too much money and devalues the money. So what people sign these contracts say, no, you're not paying me back in those lousy dollar bills that the government's just printing out like monopoly money. You got to pay me back in gold. Well, the government under FDR says, nah, that rule, you can't do it anymore. You can't have contracts that say you have to be paid back in gold. You can't do that. This is the government getting very involved in the economy, rewriting the rules to everything. And then they make it even worse. Executive Order 6102. He demands, he said, hey, people are saving too much. We need you to spend money. You are saving too much. We need more spending to increase the economy. We also need gold. So he makes everyone turn in their gold. I mean, we're talking about a king stealing your money. The FDR that you're told in the AP, the FDR that you're told in the press, they will never tell you the story of, hey, remember the time the FDR stole all of your grandma's gold? This is exactly what happened. Now, you're going to say, hey, look, no. He didn't steal it. The government paid him for it. The government paid half the price of his work. The government forced Americans to turn in all their gold and then only paid them half the price. This is literally theft. Franklin Delano Roosevelt literally stealing from your grandma or your great grandma. They made it a law that says you have to turn in your gold and we'll give you money, but only half of what it's worth. Imagine if the government did that today. What if the government went to you and made you turn in your jewelry, made you turn in your gold, and then only gave you half the price for it? Would you think, hey, that government's good? Would you think the president that did that is a good president? Whoever the president is while you're watching this video, if that president made you turn in your gold and diamonds and then only gave you half of what they're worth, would you then write in your history book, this is the greatest president ever? No, you would not do that, but that is what we have done. Now, remember, if you want to pass the AP test, you better not remember what I just said, but that's what he did. He literally stole money from people. He is considered one of the greatest presidents, and he literally stole people. Executive Order 6102, I'm going to steal your gold. A president stealing gold, unthinkable. It happened, and we think he's great. Can't make this stuff up, folks. That's not going to be on your test. As you print more money, people buy more goods. They're going to make more goods. They're going to hire more workers, and the economy is going to go up. That's great. That's awesome. But you're also going to run into inflation. If you start printing a bunch of money, which they can now do because they're not tied to a gold standard, you're going to cause inflation, which was the very reason that caused the economy to crash in the first place. But that's a side note. Anyway, going back, some more programs created during the first 100 days. The Glass-Steagall Act. This creates the Federal Deposit Insurance Company, the FDIC, and what it says. This is an insurance company that is going to insure your money in the bank. If you put up to $200,000 in the bank, the government will insure it. So remember, we're talking about banks failing and bank runs, and everybody runs in the bank and they take their money out and it collapses, and some people don't get there in time. Some people lose their life savings. They put their money in the bank loaned it out, all the money went gone, everyone defaulted, and they lost everything. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't make any bad loans. I just put my money in the bank and now it's gone. So what the government does under Glass-Steagall, it says that the government will insure up to $200,000. And this exists today. The government insures your money. So up to $200,000 in the bank. If that bank closes, if your bank closes today, the government will step in and say, hey, how much did you have in there? We got you. And so, again, we're calming people down. We're fighting fear. And that's not a terrible idea. But there's always a but. I'm always finding the other side of that. Now let's talk about something that's not going to be on the test. So the bank is going to start taking some risks. You're probably saying, wait, what do you mean the bank's going to start taking some risks? The government is going to insure your money. Let me explain how this works. The bank's going to get all risky, and they get risky today. Think about this. So you put your money in the bank. Remember, it's insured. If the bank goes under, something bad happens, the government's going to intervene and bail you out. So you loan your money in the bank, or you deposit your money in the bank, and the bank loans the money out to people, usually people with high credit scores, people who are going to pay the loan back because they have to pay the money back so that the bank has the money to pay you back. The bank is basically borrowing from you, and if they lend the money out, they need to lend out to somebody who will pay it back so that the bank can pay you back. Good, makes sense, right? Well, here's another problem. The bank feels like taking some risks. Why do they feel like taking some risks? I'll tell you in a second. The bank said, hey, look at this guy, low credit score, no way that he's ever going to pay it back. Maybe he will. Let's take a chance. Why would the bank do that? That's crazy. The bank knows this guy's not going to pay it back. That's a stupid risk. You're taking a stupid risk with these people's money. You take a stupid risk like that, you can go under, and then you can't pay them back, and then they lose money because you were stupid. The bank says, look, and he doesn't. The guy doesn't pay it back. And so the bank loans out your money to some fool that didn't deserve the money, and then you need the money back, and the bank's like, oh, sorry, we can't pay you back anymore because we loaned it out. We made some bad loans. Why did you make bad loans? And they say, because we could. We don't have to worry about it. We made some bad loans. We took some risk, but don't worry because the government now is going to take care of it. Look, we've now incentivized the bank to make bad loans. Before, they would have never risked giving money to this guy. Never in a million years would they give this money to this guy. But now they can because they know, hey, if we make a bad bet, if we make a bad loan, guess what? The government's going to step in and bail us out. So this is great for you, but we're now encouraging bad behavior. It's an incentive for bad behavior for the bank. That's the other side of, cool, my money's insured. The bank says, cool, your money's insured, so I can do whatever I want with it. Public works projects. The government it's not really loaning money to people, but they're paying them to do a bunch of stuff. The Public Works Administration, a lot of the roads that we have in America, a lot of the bridges, a lot of the dams were built during this time. The government needs to get money to people. They got to find something for them to do. And so what they do is they just pay you money to go work and go do a bunch of different projects. Build some rivers, build some roads, some bridges, some dams. Go build some stuff. We'll pay you for it. And as you're paid, you'll spend more money. That'll increase aggregate demand. And as demand goes up, more goods will be produced, which will have to hire more workers, and the economy will grow. So that's one of the main ideas of the New Deal that a lot of people defend. And there is a legitimate defense of it, and it makes sense to some extent. But where the New Deal goes off the rails is where they got all these tons of different programs to get way too involved in the economy. If they would have been more specific and targeted specific things and stayed out of different sectors of the economy, then it would have been great. But anyway. So that's the Public Works Administration. You can see all these dots you see right here on Google Maps. You can see all the different projects where the government just basically printed money and then spent money on Americans to go do stuff, make stuff, build stuff. North Carolina, there's examples, more of it just in Durham. The Civilian Conservation Corps is another New Deal program. Same thing. Same idea. Get money, have people fix up stuff. Tennessee Valley Authority, this was to electrify and bring electricity to the Tennessee Valley. Again, spend money on people, build hydroelectric dams, set it up so that electricity is in a place that wasn't there before. So you get a couple benefits. One, you got people working, but also you have the benefit of these areas now have electricity, which is going to help the economy. You're not going to start a business in an area that doesn't have electricity. Also, we have electricity. You have power throughout the night. People are going to be able to read books later. People get better education. Lives generally will improve. The hospitals are going to be better. Everything will be better. This is the government coming in, stimulating it, and making this happen. Again, it's Keynesian economics. It's not completely a fraud and completely a flawed program. So summarize the New Deal. It's basically the government creates programs where they're going to borrow money and spend the money on people to increase demand and get people working again. Be able to list some of the programs. I know I fly through this stuff. You're definitely going to go to socialstudiesgames.net, socialstudiesgames.net, look at the notes, find the specific programs because you're going to need to know all the individual programs, the alphabet soup as it is called, because there are tons of different programs. But overall, the programs are just ways of hiring people so that they're working, so that they're spending, and as they spend, the economy grows. Doesn't happen. As you can see here, it never really worked, but it sounds like a cool story. And if it sounds like a cool story, then we can tell it to kids for the next 80 years and they'll believe in big government. You obviously know which way I fall on this issue.